Welcome, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. I'm your producer and host of the show, Dr. Lino Martinez. This is your motivational podcast of people's incredible journeys. Oh yeah, let's do this. Welcome back, everybody, to A Little Less Fear podcast. Today, I would like to introduce Kevin Strauss. He's an emotional health and innovation consultant and CEO of Uchi LLC. He focuses on what drives behavior and is dedicated to making life easier and happier. Kevin's career began in biomedical engineering, finding problems and solutions, which has led to 80 patents, over 10 research publications, 2 innovation awards, and his book, Innovate, the 1%. Kevin has worked in human behavior for 2 decades and has identified emotional health as its driver and human connection as its primary supporter. Uchi is an app he created to nurture authentic connection. Kevin is also a 22-year injury-free Ironman triathlete and coach. Welcome to A Little Less Fear podcast.
Thanks, Lena. It's great to be here.
So awesome. And you know what? I love your look for since this is obviously an audio podcast, I am also on YouTube. So if people want to take a look, you have an incredible look that it resembles like the 1900s, the speakeasy days. I mean, you look incredible. I love the look that you have. There's a specific name for the stash and the beard that you have. What is that called? The Van Dyke?
Van Dyke. Yep, that's correct.
Super awesome. And I love the phone that you have in the background. For those that can't see, he's got this old phone. When was this phone made approximately?
This is a phone from 1919.
Wow. So for those viewers that are super young and don't know about history, phones in the early 1900s were super heavy, and it's got like this how could you describe this?
So it's got a separate microphone mouthpiece and earpiece. So it's 2 separate pieces. And it does have a dial. So the ones right before this didn't have a dial, and you would just, click to get an operator.
Yeah, there's this funny video I saw not so long ago where these parents put their teenagers to the test to see if they could dial a phone like this. Did you see that?
I love that video. Some people say it's real. I think it's totally real.
Oh no, it's totally real. Yeah, and they're trying to figure out like how do you dial it, and they're like, hold on, does it go back one more? Oh my gosh.
It is hilarious.
I think
that is so funny.
Super duper hilarious. Oh man, I remember back in the day, I used to be talking on the phone when I was in high school for hours and hours and hours. And it just, I don't think I can do that anymore having a cell phone. And that's probably because the technology has changed so much. I mean, were you on the phone too, hours and hours back in your days?
Oh my God. I was a total phone talker back in school and junior high. I actually had 3 phones in my room.
Wow.
One of them hooked up, to the landline, because this is back in the 80s, 1980s, right? So I had 3 phones and 2 different phone lines. And I was always on the phone talking to friends. And then sometimes I would like put the receiver, if I'm talking to 2 different people at the same time, I'd put the receivers like opposite so that the speaker was the microphone and so that they could talk to each other. That was like a really fun thing to do. Just talking till the wee hours of the morning. And it was usually not any problem with my parents. I mean, every now and then, maybe they needed to make a call, but I kind of had free reign, and my brother and sister are older, so they were already like out of the house, so.
I feel like I didn't have much privacy. I mean, it's something that this generation really doesn't have to deal with too much, but I remember back in the day, I'd be on the phone and I feel like my mom or my brother was listening, someone on the other line,
on the other
extension, even be quiet,
Yeah, on the other extension. That was the thing. Yeah, you can't do that now with the smartphones and all. Like, I don't know how you can pick up on there's no extension,
right.
It's private that way.
Definitely more private.
Did you have like some embarrassing experience or something when you were?
I mean, there were a few times where like, I think maybe a couple of times where I had a crush on someone else talking to them, and maybe my mom or my brother was like listening on the other side, or just like didn't really want to say too much because I was afraid they were gonna pick up and tune in on what I was talking about. And few times where I'd fall asleep in the middle of our conversation because we'd be on the phone for hours, like the next day, and there was something back in the day that was cute or romantic about that. Oh, we fell asleep on the phone together, type
Yeah,
thing.
we were together,
Yeah.
how we were connecting, right?
Right.
I mean, we didn't have, texting and email and social media. And I mean,
None
you're
of that.
younger than me, but still in the 90s, you were a teenager in the 90s, right? So none of that
Yes,
was
it was.
AOL Instant Messenger up in like 95. And so, but
Yeah.
you're on dial up and yeah.
Oh, I didn't have a computer till I was in my maybe early 20s actually. That's when I full on had my own computer. Other than that, I was using the school's computers and stuff. It's
Okay, so yeah, you're not
yeah,
doing AOL Instant Messenger or
right.
what's actually called Slack now. But yeah,
True.
instant messaging, if you don't have your own computer at home, that's not happening.
Right. I remember chat rooms. I mean, people even remember chat rooms anymore. That was the
You
big
know,
hype.
yeah, I've thought about chat rooms um in the last couple of years, and Uchi can sort of in a way resemble a chat room, sorta.
Ooh, yes, I can't wait to talk about this, by the way. Yes, tell me
Yeah,
more about your
I'm
app.
always happy to.
Well, let's
Um,
go into it. Let's
well,
tell us about your
let-
app, Uchi.
let's do the chat room thing first, though, since we brought that up.
Absolutely.
All I really want to say is that they were incredibly popular,
So
incredible,
popular.
right? Like overwhelmingly popular. There has to be a reason why, right? I
Yeah.
mean, there's got to be some reason why so many people were in chat rooms, and I would say it's a big reason is because people were looking for connection
Hmm.
in
True.
some way or another. They're
Yeah.
looking for connection in their life, and that's why chat rooms are so popular.
Right.
I think it really was serving a need, and then it went away with, I don't even know why. I guess, well, AOL kind of struggled, but then I think maybe Facebook, social media kind of took off, and then that could have possibly replaced the chat room. Maybe, I don't even know. I haven't
I
researched.
think so. I think that's what happened once other forms of social media kicked in because people could then comment on things right up front. But you know what I liked about the chat room is that it felt private and personal, and it felt
Yeah,
like
and you
there
could
was
do private conversations from in the chat,
yeah, right, per topic
you
too,
know.
which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, yeah, and there was some not good behavior going on in the chat rooms and some Twitter type stuff or trolling or whatever.
Yeah.
But for a lot of it, it really was a really wonderful place to come together. I mean, I met lots of different people in chat rooms. I wasn't addicted or anything, but I definitely hung out here and there and met people and had conversation on the side, made friends. Not anyone I can think of who I'm still friends with, but definitely made some nice connections back then.
I think what was exciting for me about connecting with people in chat rooms back then was the fact that it didn't feel so alone in this world. It felt like the world was expansive and there were so many people all over the world that you were connecting with all around the world, not knowing who you're connecting with. And there was just
Yeah.
almost like an innocence to it in the beginning, at least.
Yeah. Before things got really out of control with social media and
Yeah,
again, cyberbullying, trolls, predators,
exactly.
is what those are some of the really negative sides of social media. And I think maybe you're onto something with that naivety and innocence of chat rooms kind of starting out that way. Even before that, it was bulletin boards, which was, but that was very similar. You
Right,
could
right, right.
like real time as well. So yeah.
I think that's what it is too. What you just said, real time. The fact that we didn't have to wait a week or two to speak to someone, writing them a letter and sending it in the mailbox, or now you can instantly talk to somebody and connect
Yeah,
with them right away.
it addressed our need instantly. It was like instantly gratifying.
It was
And not necessarily in a bad way,
right.
um, but also in a bad way. I mean, there's like the two sides of the coin.
Sure.
Or in some ways, the instant gratification of a chat room is not good, because it's an escape, in a lot of ways. But then again, it's a really good thing because you get to have some really interesting conversation on some subject matter if you go into that room that you're really passionate about, and you can talk to other people who are also passionate about it. How wonderful is that? And they might be in other part of the country or other part of the world.
But you know, the incredible thing about that is that the evolution of technology has led for us to have our own personal chat room one-on-one right now, where we can have this podcast and talk about whatever we'd like to talk about and then inspire the world with it. And that's
That's
something we didn't
exactly
see happening
true.
20 years ago. So that's really,
Yeah,
really beautiful thing about it.
it is beautiful. I mean, how well said that was. Yeah, I mean, people can just be a fly on the wall for our little conversation,
All right.
our little private chat room, and anyone in the world will be able to see it.
So Kevin, tell us about your journey. A little less for your podcast, a motivational journey, motivational podcast that talks about motivational journeys that people have gone through to where they are at today. And I'm interested, what led you to become an emotional health and innovation consultant?
Well,
And you can start wherever you'd like to start.
yeah, I can go in lots of different ways for that. But you know, what I said for a long time is that it came to me as kind of an epiphany of why people do what they do when I was observing a conversation, an argument between a father and his teenage daughter. And they were just butting heads. They were just arguing. And I'm thinking to myself, if you would just say how you really feel or share what you're really thinking, you would have no argument.
Exactly, right?
You know, they weren't sharing how they really felt and what they were really thinking and what their perspectives truly were. And at the time I was doing like behavioral modification research and work and stuff, just in my day job, sort of biomedical engineering, but also behavioral related. And I was like, you know, what if there was a way to help parents and their teenagers communicate easier and really share what's on their mind or in their heart, right? What they're really feeling. And really, it was over the course of that night, you know, from that evening, seeing the argument, and then to the next morning, I come up with this is in 2000, this is in December of 2001. And I came up with this whole idea of like, wow, what if, you know, at the time, this is 2001, right? So I was having a lot of conversations with friends over email, just email. Some people who I'd never even met in person, or I'd only met in person one time, but we were having these epic email conversations that lasted weeks, you know, writing like really long emails. And we were really connecting. One person I connected to was my boss's niece, who had read an author, Ayn Rand, actually, and I was interested in learning more about that. And he's like, "Oh, you should talk to my niece. She's read everything that Ayn Rand's, you know, written." And then we started communicating, and we became really, really deep, strong friends just from writing email. And I thought, what if parents and kids, teenagers could do that? And I feel like teenagers were like a lost tribe, you know, like kids are all taken care of. And once you're an adult, you're on your own. But teenagers, like, where are they? They're like kind of in between, and
They are in between. Yeah, it's a tough ages to be.
Really tough, you know? I was like, what if we can make that a little easier? And I'm all about making things easier. You know, life's hard enough as it is, right? So let's make it as easy as we can, because there's enough garbage is going to come our way. So I was like, well, I'm having all these great connections just from writing email. Why don't I just create this like program? And originally I wanted to do it on a Palm Pilot because smartphones didn't.
I remember Palm Pilots, yeah.
Right. And I had this idea like, well, because parents and teenagers can email each other, but they're not going to do that. You know, they're living under the same roof. They're not going to do that.
Right.
And then you get this, you open an email window, you get this blank page. What do I say? What am I going to say to my kid? What's the kid going to say to their parents? So I was like, well, what if we could just ask a few questions to get started? And the kids answer the questions, the parents answer the same questions, and they just read each other's answers. And that's how it all got started. That was my vision in 2001. And then what happened was, I talked to my boss about it. We're looking for other ideas to propose to the National Institutes of Health, because that's where we got all of our research funding, was from NIH. We would propose research ideas. And if we won the grant, we would do the research and publish and hopefully commercialize whatever. Okay. So then I started doing the research. I'll be able to speed this up. But then
there's no hurry. Go ahead. I love this topic.
I started doing the research. Again, this is back in 2001. I started doing the research and like, how are we going to pitch it to NIH? And I had this whole thing about self-esteem that I was like struggling with, not for myself, not at that time. I didn't think I had a self-esteem problem back then. 15 years later, I'm like, oh, I actually do have a self-esteem. Took me 15 years to figure that one out. But self-esteem was a big thing for me back then in my dating life and the women that I was dating. But anyway, so what happened is I started doing the research, and NIH is really interested in high-risk behaviors by teenagers, drugs, alcohol, suicide, depression, teenage pregnancy, bullying. Those are listed by NIH. There's a few more now because things have changed in the last, 20 years. But they're interested in high-risk behaviors and reducing them, right? But as I researched each of these individually, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, suicide, as I researched them individually, I found research that other people had done that shows when a person who's struggling with alcohol abuse, when they feel more connected, their alcohol abuse gets better. It improves. A person who's struggling with drug addiction, when they feel more connected, their drug addiction gets better. A person who's struggling with depression, when they feel more connected, specifically, I'm talking about connection with people, their depression gets better. And for all these different categories, the behavior, the quote, mental health behavior, gets better when you feel more connected. I think one of the biggest problems in like the mental health industry is like the person who's studying suicide in veterans between the ages of 35 and 55 is not talking to the person who's studying anorexia and bulimia and eating disorders with 13 to 15-year-old girls. Mm-hmm. Researchers are not talking to each other. So they're all siloed. But what I found is there is a common root cause to behavior. Mm-hmm. It's connection. It's love. It's belonging. And that's really how this all got started, is seeing this research. And, I dug way into all this stuff. And I've continued in 2001 to dig into this for 22 years. I've spent more than 20,000 hours of my time, just because I've had a day job, biomedical engineering day job. Mm-hmm. My time, because I'm so interested in it. I don't want anyone to struggle. I don't want anyone to be in pain. And the pain that people are experiencing is not physical. It's not mental, because in 22 years, I've not been able to identify mental pain. I don't know what there's no mental pain existing. There's emotional pain, and it's different. And whether you're experiencing physical pain or emotional pain, your brain activates the same way. Sure does. The difference. All your body and all your brain knows is, I'm in pain, do something about it right now. And in the absence of knowing how to connect, how to love, both ways, it's got to be both ways, right? Connection's a two-way street. Mm-hmm. In the absence of knowing how to love and connect, we turn to behaviors to try and ease the pain of not having that love and connection. So I don't think humanity has a mental health problem at all, but our emotional health is virtually non-existent. And we know that because it shows up in our behaviors.
Exactly.
Behaviors are like endless. Like there could be, what I always say is the deeper the pain, the more extreme the behavior.
Yeah.
And that behavior can be really destructive, like heroin, suicide, right? That's the pretty destructive behavior. Or it can be extremely constructive, such as workaholic, overachiever, triathlete. Hello, triathlete, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Triathlon, or the hand thing went up. Or patents, like earning patents 80 patents is extreme, right? What am I trying to prove? I'm trying to prove subconsciously, right?
Right.
That I have value, that I matter, right? Because value translates to love. The more valuable we feel, the more loved we feel. And love is a basic human need. It's just as basic as air, water, food, sleep.
Sure is. You know what, Kevin, as you're saying this, I'm thinking of something. You're talking about some of the common root causes, connection, love, and belonging. Is there one that weighs more than the other, or we kind of need like equal parts of them all?
Oh, I kind of use them interchangeably.
Okay.
Those words pretty interchangeably. I mean, I think we need all of it. And by love, I don't mean romantic love necessarily, but we need that sense of connection. So, when you feel like you belong to your sports team or to your colleagues at work or to your group of friends, that's belonging, and you feel belonging because you're connected. And the more connected, the more belonging you feel. And when you have that, it's love. Okay, you know what? To answer your question, I would say love ultimately would be the real root, because love is one of the highest frequency emotions that have. And when we're vibrating, because we're all energy, this is like quantum physics. Like, this is all
right.
The science. All love, or we're all energy. And when your energy is vibrating at a higher frequency, like love, joy, and bliss, then your electromagnetic field gets bigger and it goes out. Like, you can measure this stuff.
Yeah.
And even your mouse, has an electromagnetic, everything has an electromagnetic field. And a rock, So, but when you're feeling anger, frustration, depression, your electromagnetic field's like collapsing in on it.
It is.
So
love is more like the all-encompassing.
Yeah, when you really boil it down to like at the emotional level, love, joy, bliss, those are like the really high frequency emotions, and those are going to have you really radiating out. And it's not just about self-love. I've had this conversation a lot, and we've been operating from this belief that, well, it's a known fact, right? You have to love yourself before you can love anyone else. That's a known fact, right? Everybody knows, right?
Yeah.
That's completely not true.
It's not true. You don't have to love yourself before you can love anyone else.
Correct.
Tell us why.
Because as a child, as a 1-year-old, 2-year-old, do you know anything about self-love?
No.
No, you're not even self-aware. 3, 4. So are you practicing self-love at 3 years old, 4 years old? No.
Probably not.
You're 6 years old, 6, 7 years old, when you even start to be self-aware.
True.
So trying to practice self-love is not going to happen. But when you're 1 year old, 2 years old, you know the love of your parents or not, right? You feel that love, or you're not getting it, right? Or you're not getting it in the way that you need it. And if you don't learn first what it feels like to be loved, if you haven't learned this yet, then how can you give it to others or yourself?
So true.
And that's one of the biggest problems I see in like the self-help world. We're still operating, and this is all my opinion, of course, but we're operating from this belief that you can't love anyone else until you love yourself. But so many people struggle to love themselves because they never learned what healthy love is. Mm-hmm. When they were being raised, most kids are raised in an authoritarian style home with discipline and strict, and, listening means do what I tell you to do, right? That's what listening means.
Exactly.
Is
that's what they say listening is.
Yeah. If you do what I tell you to do, then you're listening. No, that's like, oh, I don't have the words right now, but that's like ordering people around. That's like,
it's more authoritative. It's not.
Yeah.
It's really not connecting either.
It's totally not connecting.
Yeah, that's actually disconnecting.
Yeah. And the other thing that we're really missing is, there's a lot of horrible traumas that happen to little kids, under 6, but then, through childhood and even as adults. A lot of trauma happens, sexual assault and beating up. And I mean, I dated a woman who her mom would leave her and her little brother to fend for themselves for like weeks at a time when they were like 7 and 9 years old. The father wasn't around at all. So like he was like not in the picture. The mom would literally leave town for 1 to 2, 3, 4 weeks. That's severe neglect, right?
It sure is.
And these are the ACEs, right? The adverse childhood experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're really missing are the little T traumas, which there's a lot of them, but I kind of fall down on the shame, judgment, degradation, and emotional neglect. And when we are raising our children with shame and judgment, that hurts.
Absolutely.
Pain, right? So I'm like, oh, you're an idiot. Why did you ever do that? You didn't get an A on that test. You're stupid. That is emotional trauma.
It is.
Oh, you got to like, pick yourself up by your bootstraps and suck it up and be a big boy and don't cry. You're causing that person emotional trauma, and it hurts, and it causes stress, and it causes pain, and then your cortisol levels rise. And when you're constantly having this cortisol hormone flowing through your body on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour basis, we are not designed for that.
No, we're not. And that's why so many people have fear, and that's why so many people are operating with that and with their high stress hormone levels, because it's been going on since the time they were kids.
They don't know anything else. That's their
defensive mechanisms. That's just always
total
on the rise.
Defense, because they're trying to protect themselves from the pain.
Yeah.
And emotional pain. And that, when you've got cortisol pumping through your body and your brain all the time, you know what it does to your brain chemistry? It changes your brain chemistry. Brain chemistry is not just changing spontaneously like the mental health industry seems to believe, I think. Like, oh, they've got bad brain chemistry, get their brain chemistry back to normal and they won't be depressed. But we know those drugs don't really work that well. Don't get me wrong. If anybody's having success with any of these, any antidepressant, anti-anxiety, I am all for whatever works for you. If something's working for you, keep doing it. No matter what I say, if sugar works for you, keep doing it. I know sugar's terrible, but if it works for you, keep doing it. But as soon as this behavior isn't working for you anymore, let's talk about it, because there's something going on. And what I learned, this whole long story, what I've learned is it all comes back to the basic need of love, connection, belonging. But we'll just say love for sake of argument.
And so in your book, you have this book and it's called Innovate the 1%. Is this what inspired you as well? The whole conversation that we're having right now on connection and human behavior and everything?
Oh, for that book?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a completely different, that's a whole nother category and arm, and that's a whole nother thing. But the emotional health component is a chapter in the book.
Okay.
Because what I've learned in my career as a biomedical engineer is, I'm pretty good at solving problems. 80 patents doesn't happen by chance.
What is a biomedical engineer? What do biomedical engineers do?
Well, they can do a lot of things, but basically like designing equipment, designing like pacemakers and dialysis machines. That's
incredible.
Those kinds of things. What I've done mostly in my career is orthopedic implants, like total hip replacements, total knee replacements.
Wow.
And then the bulk of my work is in implants for spine surgery.
That's incredible.
And that's like where most all my patents come from. But with my team and the people I work with, we've been able to innovate like constantly. But part of my job at this one company was to accept disclosures from surgeons. So a disclosure is an idea, right? So I was responsible for officially logging it and then determining its feasibility and working with the team and so on to determine like, hey, is this surgeon's idea something that we're going to make into a product to market, right? To sell. And based on the 7+ years that I was at this company, I took over 400 disclosures, like official disclosures.
Wow, that's incredible. That's a lot.
Right? These are ideas that surgeons have, and these are like world-renowned surgeons. I'm talking like, people from UK and Japan and India and Turkey and Australia and all over the US and Canada. It's really, really smart people that are incredible with, oh my God, like what they do in the OR, like oh, I can't even do even a little bit of that on a cadaver. You know, I get,
Yeah, right.
But with over 400 disclosures, only 4 ideas turned into marketed products. That's the 1%.
Oh, gotcha.
That's how few and far between it was for a surgeon to have an idea that turned into an actual product. It's pretty rare, you know. Now, me and my team, we're engineers and some marketing people. You know, we're constantly thinking about how to solve problems every day. Surgeons are in the OR, they're talking to patients, they're diagnosing, they're running their businesses. You know, most of the surgeons have their own businesses. That's their practice. We're thinking about solving problem solving, 40 plus hours a week. We're good at it. You know, that's all we do is think about solving problems and putting them into action. So that's a big reason why, so many patents were able to come out of my department, because that's really where we focus. And we're engineers. We're designed to solve we solve problems. That's all we do.
Yeah.
So that's where the Innovate the 1% comes from. But one of the chapters in the book talks about, I think it's the second chapter, but it talks about connection. It talks about, I literally say in the book, I'm like, I love my team. I love them. Like this one designer, Larry, I love you, Larry. I love you, man. Like we talk to each other, like at work. And we just happen to sit next to each other. That just happened to be like our cubes and the pods were like next to each other. When I first started working, he was already working there. Just by chance, and then we just totally hit it off. And when you've got that kind of connection and that kind of respect and love for each other, if you have a terrible idea, it doesn't matter. You're not a bad person. You're not valued less because you have a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
Your idea sucks, and that happened all the time. Like we came up with a ton of terrible ideas, but it didn't mean we were bad people, and it didn't mean we still didn't love each other, as coworkers and friends.
Sure.
And that's why we were able to innovate so much, because we loved each other, and we were just vibing off each other constantly. And I can tell you, there's every chapter has like a story about another product invention that we came up with, and how it saved lives and earned billions of dollars in revenue and blah, blah, blah. And what the lesson was behind that particular invention and product, but the love, it's all about the love.
It is the love and connection.
Amazing
Speaking
things
of
happen.
that, and speaking of innovation, tell us about Uchi.
So Uchi is...
I've been pronouncing it incorrect. I say Uchi. It's Uchi.
Uchi. So I'm actually pronouncing it like an English way. The Japanese pronunciation is Uchi.
Uchi. Okay.
And there's a concept in Japan called Uchi Soto. Uchi means in-group and Soto means out-group. So, and it's a dynamic kind of relationship. So like your Uchi can be your family and Soto would be your neighbors. Or your Uchi could be your department at work, like engineering department, but the marketing department and the finance department would be Soto, so the engineering department. But if I was talking to a customer, then my whole company is my Uchi, and the customer is Soto.
Kind of like your own a tribal connection, like your own family, like a specific little family grouping that you have.
Exactly. It's your own little tribe, your own little family. And Uchi's mission is to help you connect authentically with the people who matter most to you, the people you're closest with, because those are the people who have the greatest impact on your life. Now, there is research that strangers can have a pretty equal impact. But for me, I still feel like the people you're around every day, and they say the 5 people you're closest to, I think this is in the research, have the greatest influence on your life. So if they're walking out of a Starbucks in Iowa right now and they get hit by a car, it doesn't really impact me. Now, I obviously don't want anyone to get hit by a car, but I'm not really too upset about that person in Iowa who got hit by a car. If my sister got hit by a car walking out of Starbucks, my entire world will be upside down.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the people closest to us. So if we're not getting the love that we need from the people closest to us, like the father who left, when you were 2 years old and never came back. And even as loving as your mom might be, and let's say your mom's giving you that kind of love that you need to receive, if you don't have that love from your father, if that's what you need and you don't have it, it's going to cause all kinds of emotional pain within you. And if you don't reconcile that somehow, you're going to really struggle, and it'll probably come out in your behavior. And we see it all the time. I mean, we see this all the time.
So how does Uchi connect people?
So Uchi, going back to 2001 and that research and everything, of asking some questions, and then the teenagers answer the questions, the parents answer the same questions, and then you read each other's answers, right? That's what Uchi is. It's an app, again, back in 2001, 2003, when the website first launched, which, by the way, was before Facebook and before MySpace. That website launched. It was called Family eJournal back then. But Uchi is the newer version of the Family eJournal original version, and it's an app instead of a website because everybody's on their phones now. And it's a question and answer app, right? It's like those card games where you go around the table and everyone answers the question. So that's what Uchi is. But now you can do it asynchronously. You don't have to be in the same place at the same time. You can be half a world apart, and you can still have connection. Because when we start sharing our perspective on things, and that's what the questions are, they're all, open-ended, fill in the blank. There's no multiple choice or, yes or no questions. It's all, we want to hear your perspective on the world. How do you see the world? And I'll share how I see the world. And it's not a social media platform, but it is a social platform because you share your answers, and only your Uchi friends can read your answers. And they can only read your answer if they first answer the question. So you have to contribute in order to consume, which is the opposite of every social media that I'm aware of, right? Even group text messaging or email chains, you can just be a voyeur. You can just be observing everything and never contribute anything. And how can you really have a connection if both people aren't sharing?
Correct. So come again, I'm trying to understand this. So somebody, let's say somebody's on the app right now. Let's just give a random hypothetical question. Could you give an example on this?
Sure. What's your favorite color?
Okay, sure. What's your favorite color? So then someone goes on Uchi app. Let's say that there's how many people can be in. I'm for some reason I'm envisioning this like a chat room. Is it kind of like a chat room?
It's sort of like a chat room, but you have to accept somebody's invitation or invite someone and they accept yours, just like Facebook and LinkedIn connections and all that. So, and it's only done through email. We don't even use phone numbers. We keep it really private. So in order for you to invite someone, like some family members, a few friends, into your Uchi, you got to know their email address, and you can't search for anybody on the app. That doesn't exist. So you have to know their email address in order to invite them. So let's say now you're connected in an Uchi, you're in Uchi, right? Mm-hmm. You answer a question, and they'll get a notification that says, oh, your friend Lino answered this question, but it's locked. Mm-hmm. And then if you go ahead and answer, if I got that notification, I answer the question, now your answer unlocks, and now I can read your answer.
But you have to answer it first before you could read the answer from the other person. Yeah.
You have to contribute before you consume. And then once
then who asks the question initially?
It doesn't matter who answers first, because you can answer questions in any order. They come in groups of 10, but you can just bounce around. You don't have to answer all 10 in a topic. You just answer questions, and then your Uchi, they get notifications that a question was answered. And if you want to answer that question, you can. If you don't want to answer it, you don't have to, but you're not going to see their answer.
That's really innovative. And how did you come up with this?
So this is all building off that original Palm Pilot idea, right? And then, it evolved into the app. And, I've done research showing that this kind of communication, just written, there's no pictures, there's no video, there's no audio, it's only written words. And again, another belief that society is still operating from that's incorrect is that the only way that you can really connect with someone is through face-to-face. You got to be in person, right? We got to go back to school after COVID. It's got to be in school. The only way to connect is in school. It's good. It didn't solve any of the mental health. It solved a little bit of the mental health problems, that the kids were experiencing because of at-home learning. But the kids who are struggling, it's more than ever before, even since they've been going back to school in person. And just having, verbal dialogue or, face-to-face dialogue doesn't mean you're connecting. Look at how many people live under the same roof.
So true.
And don't connect.
Right.
But we know from 2,500 years of data that two people can have a profoundly deep connection just from writing letters.
Yeah.
So and I know, and this is how it started, just from writing email, which is just writing letters, but delivered faster, right? That's all it is. And that's all email is, right? Mail, email, right?
Exactly.
So that's what Uchi is a way to share your perspective and be heard by the people who matter to you. And when you do that regularly, because emotional health has to be nurtured on a day-to-day basis, just like your physical health, just like your mental health, just like your spiritual health. But we don't do it. Most people don't even nurture their physical health on a day-to-day basis.
That's for sure. You know what this
right? And that's easy.
As you're saying this, I used to work at a dual diagnosis rehab, and this kind of reminds me almost of like when I used to do group therapy, where I could ask a question and people could start answering their own question. It was a safe environment. There's between 7 to 10 of us.
Yeah.
And we connect that way, and everybody ends up feeling fulfilled at the end of the therapy session, even if they didn't participate, but even more so when you do participate. You were listening to A Little Less Fear podcast, episode 176, with our guest, Kevin Strauss. As a special free bonus, we partnered with the Uchi app to hold a raffle drawing for 8 listeners. If you're enjoying this conversation that we're having here on A Little Less Fear podcast, we can take our conversations on the Uchi app. Stay tuned at the end of this episode for more details.
For sure. You feel heard. You feel understood. You feel like you matter. And when you feel like you matter, you feel valuable. And when you feel valuable,
you feel loved. Yeah.
But generating more money doesn't make you feel more loved.
So true.
It does, but it doesn't. Having more power doesn't make you feel more loved. Having a higher status, like an actor or an athlete, doesn't necessarily make you feel more loved. Look at how many actors and movie stars die by suicide. They're not feeling love. And a lot of it is because they never learned how to receive love when they were little.
Right.
Like Robin Williams, or, they didn't learn it. We talked about it earlier, in the show, that if you don't learn what it feels like to receive like healthy, then you're going to struggle to receive it in the future, and you're going to struggle to give it to others and to yourself. Uchi, you start to learn how to receive love, or just how to connect and share and feel heard. Now you're connecting. Now you're feeling the love. And
I love that, because what you're saying is that connection is also receiving. And that's
it has to be.
Yeah, right.
Like the way I define connection is that it has to be two-party, right? And both parties need to be sharing comparable kinds of information or experiences to a similar level of depth or intimacy. Okay. So an example where this doesn't work is where a child comes home from school and the parent says, "How was school? What'd you learn? How was your homework? Or what homework do you have? What grade did you get on the test? Who'd you hang out with after school? What'd you have for lunch?" It's like an interrogation, right? When does the parent share how their day was?
Right.
So now how does the child feel connected to the parent when the parent never shares anything or puts on this air of like perfection, which we all know no perfect, right? We all mess up. But this is how we're like, I'm the authority figure. You do what I say. That's not connection.
True.
So we're screwing up from the beginning. And this is why we're struggling as a species and self-destructing as a species. We don't know how. What I've seen over the last 20 years is the biggest problem really is most people really struggle to receive love. Here's a good example. Right before COVID, I was given a presentation at a conference, and I asked the audience, I said, their hand thing's going to go up. I said, raise your hand if you struggle to receive a compliment. Every single person except for one raised their hand. If you're struggling to receive a compliment is just a gesture of love. You're
so true.
Love. Right?
Right.
So we really struggle to receive love. And that's just one little example, you know. And you can look at all this, like so many service industries, teachers, nurses, doctors, they're all really good at doing for others, right? This is a care industry, a service industry. They want to care for others. They want to give love. But look at how much they struggle. I mean, the divorce rate for doctors is like out of control. The physical health, I mean, I've worked in hospitals enough. Most of okay, I'm really generalizing here, so take it with a grain of salt. But most of the nurses that I've seen are like really overweight, out of shape, unhealthy, eating garbage, depressed, angry, you know, disgruntled, overworked, stressed out, not feeling appreciated, not feeling valued. That's across the board, hence the Great Resignation, hence quiet quitting. People don't feel valued. Talk about burnout. I'm going to go in a totally different direction now. But, you know, burnout is it's amazing how much more a person is willing to work when they feel valued. Mm-hmm. Even when they haven't had a vacation for 3 months, you give them a little bit of really sincere, you know, not required gratitude or love. That'll have them sailing for, you know, several more weeks. They'll accept less pay, less monetary compensation when they get real appreciation and value. And Uchi can do that because everybody gets a chance to be heard. You can use it in the workplace. You can use it in schools. I mean, think about schools. It's like sit in a chair for 6 to 8 hours, don't say a word, and be talked at. Yeah. I'm doing to you today. The irony.
Kevin, you're funny. Hey, Kevin, what about you personally? How do you feel mostly connected with people? What brings you the gratification? What brings you love? How do you receive?
Talking on the phone. Just kidding. Yeah. So I'm a big fan of the love languages. You know, I think a lot to that. And quality time is number one love language. So, you know, one of my all-time favorite things to do is to just meet with a friend or 2 or 3 and sit in a coffee shop for a couple of hours and just chat.
It is. That's a lot of fun. Exchanging energy that way is a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So this has been very one-sided today. So sorry about that.
Not at all. I'm connecting with you and I'm receiving it all. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I feel you. I mean, I just feel your energy all the time. And anytime we've talked, I always feel your energy radiating out, and it just being around you amps me up. So,
well, that's because you're receiving it, because not everyone's going to see that if they're not in the receiving mode. So that's
true. That's true. And I've had to work on receiving compliments I've been working on that for like 5 years straight, you know, like I really have to be conscious and aware. I'm a lot better now, but
what compliment do you struggle with?
Oh, I mean, like any kind of compliment, you know, it's like, oh, they're trying to get something from me, you know, all that self-talk, like, oh, they don't really mean it, you know. I mean, oh my God.
But what if though, Kevin? What if? Because there are some people that will compliment because of that, because they want something back.
That's true.
So how do you differentiate something authentic versus they want something?
Now I just take the compliment.
There you go. That is the best thing to do, right? And not even
whatever they're doing, whatever their agenda is.
You like my hat? Thanks so much. We'll keep it that way.
Yeah, you know, you know? But I'll tell you a funny one is, this is pretty personal, but growing up, like, you know, high school, college, and so on, through dating and everything, I'd say like 85% of the women I've made out with, like make out with in my life, tell me I'm a really good kisser. Thanking them for this, right? Right. But they volunteer this, you know?
Yeah.
And for so long, I constantly would ask my girl friends, like, do women just say that? Do they just say that to everybody? Like, no, we do not. If you're not a kisser, we're just not saying anything.
I believe that.
We're only saying that if we really think,
yeah,
you know? But it took me decades to accept that, oh, okay, I guess I am a really good kisser. I'll just what I'm doing, you know? But it took a long time for me to believe that. I was like, oh, they're just saying that. They just want to make me feel good so that I keep dating them or whatever. I don't know, you know?
But at some point, did you not recognize or realize or feel that your kissing was flowing a certain way that was reciprocated and felt like there was an equal give and take with the kiss and a natural flow to it?
You know,
You're blushing.
Really... Oh, am I?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome.
Oh,
Well,
man.
you really...
No, I love that you're blushing. That means that you're understanding it and you're feeling it and that you recognize it. So yeah.
Yeah, well, you're bringing up something that I really wasn't aware of, or I really wasn't self-aware of that. I enjoyed the making out, right? Like that was awesome and
Sure.
a big turn on, but I wasn't recognizing that, oh, we must be really jiving here. Like my kissing must be matching theirs and theirs. I don't know. I just hadn't really thought of it like that. Like,
I feel that there's a natural connection that you have with humans. And if you're connecting with females on and on again, through the incredible art of kissing, and you're able to kiss passionately and really feel, I mean, to me, that's it's a gift, and that you're giving to people and they're receiving it gracefully.
Well, and it feels great to give love, right? I mean,
Yeah.
giving a compliment, you receive a bigger dose of oxytocin when you give a compliment than when you receive a compliment.
Yeah.
I don't know if you knew that, but that's like in the research, you know.
Yeah, I'd read about that. That's interesting, huh?
Yeah. And oxytocin's the love hormone, right? The connecting love hormone and all, which, by the way, there's no hormone for being evil, right? There's no hormone or gene for being bad, right? But there is a hormone for love. So humans are designed to love. We're not designed to be evil. Evil is a behavior. Evil is a way that we try to compensate for our pain. That's what behavior is. The time, that's what behavior is. You know, so whoever just shot up the school in Tennessee on Monday, you know, they're angry. They're in pain. You know, they keep focusing on the guns and mental health. They're not crazy. And I've been following these shooters since Columbine, you know, 99. And not every shooter, because it's a lot, but I've got the gist. And they're not mentally ill. And the mental health community is very strong in their viewpoint that it's not mental illness, you know, and it's not the guns, because you can easily plow through a schoolyard with a car and really maim 100 kids in 2 seconds by driving through a school courtyard at 7:30 in the morning. Now, I'm not saying, you know, get rid of all the guns or don't get rid of the guns or whatever. And I'm not saying guns are not a problem, because I think they are. But we can easily choose a different behavior for the same result, for the same outlet of our pain. You know, to try to pin it on guns or mental illness. But when you look at the profile of these people, they've been isolated, they've been neglected, they've been rejected. They're not part of the community. They don't feel like they belong anywhere.
Right.
That's a common theme. They're in pain.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how it comes out. They can shoot others or they can shoot themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just missing the whole point on behavior, like the whole mental health. Oh, and the point I was going to make is when these people decide to shoot up a school or a grocery store or a church or an office or whatever, right? There's a lot of planning. That person who shot up that grocery store up in New York, he had done reconnaissance on that store like 2 or 3 times. He traveled to that store beforehand. That takes planning. That takes, planning and deciding and timing. And there's so many decisions that his brain had to deal with. That's his mental health. His mental health is fully intact. How I mental health.
That's true. It's just the wrong vibration.
Absolutely the wrong vibration. I mean, absolutely. But and that's his emotional health side, So, I could go on and on about this, but it's the mental health is fine. They're in pain. And until we acknowledge and accept and understand that a person's behavior is rooted in their pain, we're not going to get anywhere in all these behaviors, including the extremely constructive behaviors like professional athletes and actors and all of that kind of thing, and the overachievers and so on. I mean, look at Elon Musk. Elon Musk, a mess of a person. He's on his 3rd marriage and his 7th child. And when one of his kids turned 18, she filed for is it exoneration? Is that the word? To be fully separated from Elon Musk. So he's done incredibly, innovative things in the world, but emotionally, he's a complete mess of a person. Mm-hmm. He can't have a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
He doesn't know how. Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, they might be really, rich and innovative and everything, which is nice.
But they're missing the self-emotional love connection with themselves and with
they're compensating. They're compensating with that extreme behavior, wealth and innovation and so on, But they're hurting a lot of people around them. Sorry.
They really are. It's unfortunate. Not at all. Kevin, so how does somebody get the Uchi app?
So Uchi is free to download on Play and the App Store. It's free to use. We don't have any ads or anything like that. You just get on it and register, just name an email address and password, and you're good to go. Answer questions whenever you want, invite some friends and family, and just share and connect asynchronously. And again, the only people who can read your answers and comments are your Uchi. And if they've already answered that question. So that's all free. And the revenue generating side, because you can't have a business without generating revenue, right? Because we're a monetary based world, is if you want to create your own questions for your own little tribe, we call this an Uchi Tribe, then you pay a small fee and you can get a subscription. You can do a la carte or subscription, whatever. And you can come up with the questions and invite a small group of people. And you can do that again and again and again with different groups of people and different questions. You can repeat the group with different questions, or you can, have the same group with different, whichever way that goes, right?
Yeah. You know what, Kevin, as you're saying this, I would love to connect with these podcast listeners. I think it'd be really incredible to create an Uchi Tribe with the listeners that we can keep conversation and the connection going.
You are reading my mind. One of the greatest challenges, right? One of the greatest challenges with podcasts is that it's really difficult to engage your audience, because
it really is, especially because they're all over the world. It's how are we supposed to connect? Who am I even connecting with? And when I look at my,
you don't even know.
There's listeners in Australia and even some in Israel, and I'm like, what in the world? How am I supposed to connect with them?
Yeah, you get it. You might see, I got 10 downloads in Israel, but you don't know who they are, right? But you could create an Uchi Tribe, a private Uchi Tribe for each podcast for you and your guest, or just your guest if you weren't going to be a part of it, depends on what you want, and invite, a handful of listeners up to 10, because once you get more than 10 people in a tribe, the amount of activity it's overwhelming actually. So you really want to like take your time. But yeah, invite, say, put a note on we can do it for this podcast.
Oh, I'd love to.
In the show notes, send an email to Lena or to me. We'll figure out how to do that. We'll create an Uchi Tribe for, 8 more listeners if you and I are in it. So it's 10 people. We'll have 10 questions about this podcast, and we'll all get to share. Lena will answer, I'll answer, we'll all interact and have some more conversation. And what we found is these Uchi Tribe conversations usually last about 1 to 2 weeks.
Excellent.
But everybody's answered and commented, and then the conversation, like any conversation, it naturally kind of dies out. But you always have access on Uchi to that tribe to see what's going on there. So you can always access that. And when you're in a tribe, it's like a little island. So anyone in the tribe does not have access to any of your regular Uchi activity. That's all private already. And you don't have access to the other Uchi tribes that you're in or that they're in. You're just in that one little private conversation. And let's engage with the audience.
Oh, I'd love that, Kevin. I love this idea. Thanks so much for spreading all of your incredible wisdom light on A Little Less Fear podcast. How can our viewers, our watchers, and our listeners find you if they need to get a hold of you? What are your social media handles?
Kevin R. Strauss is the primary handle for anything. I'm mostly on LinkedIn. I'm trying to get a YouTube channel going, but I'm not so great about making the videos, but I want to do more. And then, of course, there's kevinrstrauss.com. There's uchiconnection.com, which it's easy to find me there. And then with the triathlon stuff, there's trytmi.kevinrstrauss.com. So lots of different ways. If you just search Kevin R. Strauss and connection or emotional health or patents or triathlon, you'll find me.
I will always remember connection is receiving. Thanks so much for receiving me. And it's been a pleasure receiving you. And it's been a pleasure connecting with you and expanding with our love. Thank you for listening to A Little Less Fear podcast. As a special free bonus, I've partnered with the Uchi app to hold a raffle drawing for 8 listeners to join me in deeper conversations using a private Uchi Tribe specific to this episode. Those listeners not randomly selected will receive a free complimentary Uchi Tribe to use as they desire. Uchi, spelled UCHI, is a free social app that guides private conversations using a question and answer format. We've come up with a handful of questions about today's episode, and we'd like a small group of our listeners to share their perspectives with each other, and we'll share ours too. Together, we'll discuss our answers and comments over the next 1 to 2 weeks. Register for the drawing using the link in the show notes and be sure to include the episode's code. The drawing will be held 48 hours after the episode is live, so sign up soon and we'll see you in this episode's Uchi Tribe. Thank you all so much for all the listeners, the viewers, the watchers, and the subscribers. If you have not yet subscribed, go ahead and do so, and please share the story, share this journey, share this podcast with your friends and your family. You can find information on my book, details about my book, on my website at www.alittlelessfear.com, where you will also find my freelance poetry that I write. It's visual poetry with video for businesses. And for social marketing, if you are interested, please send me an email at alittlelessfear@gmail.com. Again, my website is www.alittlelessfear.com, and if you'd like to be on the show, you can also send me an email, or if you have any questions or comments, at alittlelessfear@gmail.com. Feel free to also check out my YouTube channel, also titled A Little Less Fear Podcast, where you will catch all of these episodes on video on YouTube. Thank you all so much. I love you. Thanks for your support. Take care and keep shining on. Rock on. I love you.
Awesome.
We're definitely staying in touch for sure.
Peace, love, connect.
Peace, love, happiness, joy.